Easter to you all. Happy Easter, dear televiewers. Welcome back from the weekend. It's time for the news. We thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our major story this evening: the civil society in Cameroon holds its breath as Parliament votes for the position of the Vice President. What is going to be the major role of the Vice President, and how does this other new constitutional amendment change or adjust the order or structure of functioning of the state? Our reporters will be bringing to you details of recent changes in the constitution, plus reactions from political actors in this news edition. And also today, April 6, 2026, marks it exactly 42 years following the attempted coup d'etat in Cameroon that was on April 6, 1984. In the second part of the news, we come back to the historicity and some major lessons of that event. Viewers, those are our little stories. Details and more in just a moment. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for the confidence. Adopted by Parliament, but somehow far from unanimously being embraced, the creation of the post of Vice President is redefining Cameroon's constitutional order. Presented as a tool for stability and efficiency, the reform is somehow instead opening a new front for political debate, with critics denouncing what they see as an expansion of presidential control. Innocent Ase, in the report which comes up next, presents to us some aspects of the constitutional amendment.
Cameroon's political landscape is shifting at the top as Parliament on April 4 approved the constitutional reform creating the post of Vice President of the Republic, a move set to reshape the very structure of power in the country. While authorities present it as a step towards stability and executive efficiency, critics argue it could concentrate power further in the hands of the president. The reform, inspired by President Paul Biya's 2025 inaugural address, is aimed at improving the efficiency of the state and adapting governance structures to current challenges. Under the new provisions, the Vice President will be appointed by the President of the Republic and will serve within the duration of the presidential mandate. The office holder will carry out duties delegated by the head of state. One of the most notable changes concerns presidential succession. In the event of a vacancy due to death, resignation, or permanent incapacity, the Vice President will now complete the remainder of the presidential term after taking the oath of office. If both the President and Vice President are unable to serve, fresh elections will be organized. In the interim, the President of the Senate will act as head of state. The reform also places the Vice President under the same legal and ethical obligations as the President, including asset declaration requirements and accountability before the High Court of Justice. Government officials say the creation of the Vice Presidency will strengthen executive coordination, ensure continuity in leadership, and reduce the financial burden of organizing elections in case of vacancy. However, the reform is already generating debate within political circles, particularly over the appointment process of the Vice President rather than election by popular vote. The law further amends several key constitutional provisions, including those relating to presidential powers, succession, and governance structures. With this development, Cameroon enters a new phase in its constitutional evolution, one that could reshape Cameroon's political landscape for years to come. However, authorities are betting on a more stable and efficient executive system.
Meanwhile, the introduction of the post of Vice President marks a noticeable redefinition of the country's constitutional order and governmental structure. This is the view of some political and civil society actors who say Cameroon now has a less ambiguous and clear presidential succession pattern. For me, I'm Tron Sanda Tausosmo.
To the political class in Cameroon, the newly adopted post of Vice President gives a clear and less ambiguous knowledge on presidential succession in the country.
We've been asking ourselves. People have been posing questions, but Cameroonians are just like, we have been asking. Now the solution is there. We have now a post of a vice president. That means if the president is not there, we have someone who can replace him.
Tagia Fomenkon Pascal says focus should be on how to make the best out of the new position, irrespective of how it came into force.
Without unity, without unity, authorities and people, without the submission of the people to the authorities, we will never make it. We'll never make it. Politically, it's a matter of power. Now is the power has taken someone to put, the Bible will tell you, let me close with that submit yourself all to the authorities in power.
Beyond this position, he says Cameroonians need a total shift in mentality so as to be able to align with divine principles secrets of success.
Really, I have one good one. I know that if you have 100 Cameroonians, 99 will tell you what he's saying is wrong. Let me tell you, a guy who lives diaspora, he comes to Cameroon, he moves out, he gets to nightclub, moves out with his girlfriend at 3 o'clock in the morning, no problem. How many countries do you have in the world like that? Cameroon, we have security. Because the security, I think that Mr. Atanganji is doing a wonderful work for the security of this country, because he's the Minister of Interior, of course, and he's the one in charge with Mr. Barangeli. We need to recognize that. If not, we will be putting those who are in mediocrity together with them, and nobody will see the best end. So let us move together, as I said again, authorities and people hand in hand, but we love peace, knowing that without peace we can never make it to end.
Adopted by Parliament but far from being unanimously embraced by Cameroonians, the creation of the post of Vice President marks a noticeable but redefining moment in Cameroon's constitutional order and governmental structure.
Now over to one of our lead stories. April 6, 1984 to today, April 6, 2026, it is exactly 42 years that a coup d'etat against the Biya regime was fought. It has been considered by many as a staged play rather than a plot to topple the then young Biya government. Sedu Chakuto now takes us back memory lane and explains what really happened on that fateful day.
On April 6, 1984, the president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, who had come to power less than 2 years earlier, faced an attempted coup orchestrated by officers of the Republican Guard from the north of the country.
Camerounaises, Camerounais, l'armée nationale vient de libérer le peuple.
The Cameroonian army has just liberated Cameroonian citizens from Biya's gang, from their tyranny, their unspeakable blunder. Yes, the Cameroonian army has decided to put an end to this individual's criminal policy against the national unity of our beloved country.
La Constitution.
In Yaoundé, the coup leaders seized control of key locations and carried out numerous arrests. The Director of National Security, Martin Bargagele, was among those arrested and imprisoned. General Pierre Semenge's house was attacked, but the Army Chief of Staff, though wounded, narrowly escaped. The head of state, Paul Biya, meanwhile, took refuge in the bunker of the presidential palace. For some, the situation seemed hopeless. However, the coup leaders did not have complete control of the communication channels. Cameroon has just experienced over the last 20 months the darkest hours of its history under the Biya regime.
La paix interne troublée, sa prospérité économique compromise, la réputation nationale ternie. Chers compatriotes,
its unity is jeopardized, internal peace is disrupted, its economic prosperity is compromised, and its national reputation is tarnished. You have all been witnesses to the horrible game played out by the regime, which dares to speak of liberalism, democracy, and national integration, while every day its actions scandalously trample on these high values.
Supérieur est amené à prendre un certain nombre de décisions au regard de la sécurité nationale et le Conseil militaire supérieur demande au peuple camerounais de le comprendre.
For a few hours, Yaoundé was paralyzed. Then, the situation shifted in favor of Paul Biya supporters. They finally loosened the coup's grip and even managed to retake access to the presidential palace, where President Paul Biya emerged from his bunker. The day after, he made a public announcement. Cameroon has gone through a delicate period in its history. Yesterday, April 6, 1984, around 3 am, elements of the Republican Guard attempted a coup d'etat with the aim of seizing political power by force. Thanks to the intervention of the armed forces, the threat was neutralized.
Une victoire complète. Le calme règne sur toute l'étendue du territoire national.
From April 27 to the 30th of April, a military tribunal sentenced 35 defendants to death, and the executions took place a few days later in Balmayo. Amadou Aijo, on his part, on exile abroad, was accused of masterminding the operation and was also sentenced to death in absentia. Paul Biya then decided to reform his army and distance himself from the French ally deemed complice in order to forge closer ties with Israel.
And we will be talking more on that in the second part of the news. Now, about 30 journalists from the Far North region gathered in Garua, that is in the north, for a workshop which outlines the do's and don'ts when covering issues connected to ex-combatants in disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration centers. The session was organized by the Disarmament, Demobilization, and Reintegration Committee with the International Organization for Migration. Immaculate Fogui has more in this report.
Journalists from the Far North region sharpening their skills in crisis communication, sensitive interviewing, and social media use at a workshop taking place in Garua. The training, organized by the Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Committee in collaboration with the International Organization for Migration, focuses on enhancing media coverage on ex-combatants. For me, improving field reporting means learning how to interview ex-combatants effectively. That is, getting their consent first. Sometimes we overlook this, thinking that if we get an approval from the center head, the ex-combatant will automatically comply. But the need to feel that, as a journalist, you are approaching them without judgment, seeking information to help them reintegrate or encourage others to lay down their arms.
Avoir des informations qui pourraient soit l'aider à se
en situation de crise et puis bien évidemment.
We learned key rules for reporting in crisis situations, like respecting ethics when filming ex-combatants. A misused image can hurt families, so we are getting tips on producing responsible content. Through practical group exercises, they reinforce their skills, boosting their capacity to report on critical issues and support the region's peace efforts.
Ce qu'il est attendu de vous, c'est de rendre compte fidèlement.
The goal is to accurately convey DDR's strategy for voluntary return and reintegration for ex-combatants. We are focused on supporting their rehabilitation before they reintegrate into their chosen community, and we cannot do this without the help of journalists.
Centre dédié à cet effet pour leur réhabilitation avant leur réintégration en communauté de leur choix.
Armed with new knowledge, these media professionals can now confidently cover ex-combatants' return and advocate for peace.
Let's now present to you the poor state of roads in the Babubuk village. We are in the Indian division of the southwest region. The roads are completely impassable whenever it rains, and the villagers find it hard transporting goods from farms to the markets. Lom Mayeru now takes us to the Indian division.
In Minister Elungpo Chair's village along the Nguti Bangeng, the poor state of road makes transport difficult for the peasant. Babumbok area is a high cash and good cross-producing basin, but the inhabitants makes nothing from the cash products.
You carry cocoa from Baobok to Nyandon before you want this in Nyandon. You don't white all like fish where you come on in Savata. But today, and not only that, you have to pay transport. Today, now by the pay, they carry cocoa. One bag of cocoa, 25,000 pounds. Do you know? You see how, plenty money to go where it's supposed to enter for farmers there.
Narrow roads filled with obstacles gives access only to two means of transport: motorbikes and trekking. The upcoming rainy season is announcing a horrible film in this community. While waiting to benefit from infrastructural development, which is an essential link that will transform its local productivity into national prosperity, ensuring that its vital contribution to Cameroonian economy continue to thrive for generations to come.
And now let's talk sports. In Nous, the aucun have been crowned champions of the first phase of the Elite One Championship. The club from the west region of the country keeps the record as the best club playing away. Sumajikan Gabriel has more.
Unisport of Bafang finished as champions of the first phase of the Elite One Championship. Le Flambeau de l'Ouest, as they are fondly called, ended the first phase recording 9 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats in 13 matches played, recording 29 points and scoring 15 goals in 13 matches. Apart from being the honorific first phase champions, Unisport of aucun was the best club playing away, as in 5 matches played out of the pitch, they won 4, lost 1 and collected 12 points out of a possible 15. Unisport of aucun was the second best team on home ground, picking up 17 points out of a possible 24 points. Unisport of aucun had the third best defense of the Elite One Championship with 11 goals conceded in 13 matches, behind Cotton Sport of Garwa and Colombe Sportif of Janelobo, who conceded less. The first phase was also good for the Public Works Department, PWD Bamenda. The boys of Abakwa had the best home record. In 7 matches played at the Proximity Stadium, PWD won 6, drew 1, picking up a total of 19 points out of a possible 21 points, with the first phase of the Elite One Championship over 4 players. Jules Amankwo of Dynamo Douala, Blaise Fundifochu of Aigle Royal of Menua, Serge Dora of Gazelle FA, and Sinjo Breeze Edmond of Colombe Sportif of Janelobo will come back prepared to continue the tussle of who to get the golden boot for the top scorer of the season. Going on break, all 4 players from Dynamo of Douala, Aigle Royal of Menua, Gazelle FA, and Colombe Sportif of Janelobo are tied on 6 goals each.
And now, before we move over to the second part of the news, let's talk business. First, Cameroon is accelerating its transition from a country with untapped mineral deposits to an active mining nation with ongoing major industrial projects and others in view, driven by the 2035 vision to become an emerging economy. The government, via the Ministry of Mines, Industry and Technological Development, is transforming its mining sector from informal artisanal activity to large-scale industrial production in iron ore, bauxite, gold, limestone, among other minerals. Details in the report which comes up next.
Cameroon is accelerating progress towards the industrialization of its mining sector. Projects are multiplying and taking shape on the ground. In Mini Matap in the Damawa region of the country, bauxite is leading the way in its transformation. The project, led by Kamalco, is showing tangible progress. Earthworks are complete, installations are underway, logistics corridors are being developed with a 42-kilometer road to Makor, and the rehabilitation of the railway line to Douala is expected to be completed by August 2026. The iron ore sector is taking over with industrial intensive projects. The Bipinti Grand Zambi project, led by G-Stones, is based on estimated reserves of 750 million tons with a projected annual production of 36 million tons. In Lobe, near Kribi, the site developed by Sinosteel is emerging with 632 million tons of reserves containing approximately 30% iron, destined to be enriched to 60%. The project aims for an annual production of 20 million tons. In the same vision of expanding its mining sector, Cameroon has planned 4 major industrial gold mining projects in the localities of Kolomine and Bokene in the East region. Bipemi in the North region is starting this year, and Beri in the Adamawa region will follow in 2027. At the same time, the artisanal sector is undergoing a complete restructuring through a migration to the vast glue system and imposition of a minimum production declaration threshold to prevent smuggling, along with the complete closure of all illegal sites. According to the Ministry of Mines, Industry and Technological Development, These measures aim to complete gold traceability and increase state revenue. The same thing is happening in the limestone sector, with estimated reserves of 16.7 million tons and annual production of approximately 668,000 tons. This sector enables the development of the entire limestone clinker cement chain.
2025 was a historic year where Cameroon transitioned from a country of potential to a mining nation with embarking on 5 major mining projects, 2 in the iron ore sector, 1 in the bauxite sector, 1 in gold, 1 in limestone. We are still having perspectives of rare earth. In 3 regions of this country, we have rare earth where our partners are here. And in 3 regions, we are going to run the top for titanium and rare earth. So that is still a chapter to come. There's great hope for our nation. And if you say, look, you comply, the presidency wants clearance, transparency in what is at all levels. It's what is produced, it's at the effort we are giving Kimberley the powers that they should even stand at the entry point of the plane to check.
And that does it for the first part of the news, viewers. Let's now move on to talking points. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is Dr. John Ako. You are a political scientist. Thank you so much for accepting to be our guest tonight on the news, Doctor. Well, let's just move right away to our question, Dr. Ako. Today, April 6, marks exactly 42 years since the failed or attempted coup d'etat in Cameroon that was on April 6, 1984. Can you, Dr. Ako, briefly come back to the historicity? Somehow, you were a teenager then. Tell us what you remember about the events of 1984.
The pleasure is mine once again on Equinoxe television, and very importantly, pertinent issues concerning Cameroon. The pleasure is mine once again.
Thank you, Doctor. I was just saying a while ago that today, April 6, marks exactly 42 years since the failed or attempted coup d'etat in Cameroon to topple the then very young Biya regime that was on April 6, 1984. Can you now briefly come back to what happened, the historicity? You were a young guy then. Tell us what you remember about the events of 1984, Dr. Ako.
Yeah, academically, as a researcher, we grew up to find facts, a lot of expression, frustration. Again, the ruling party CPDM giving the reason that on the 6th of April 1984, there was an attempted coup on President Paul Biya. That was too far. Others were thinking that the manipulated coup was equally not real, and that may be a cinematographic presentation of the ruling party with intention of putting conflict between the former CNU party and the created CPDM party, which wanted to consolidate himself in power. A lot of books have been written that yes, there was a conflict of what we call the Ayijo-Paul Biya rift, which equally resulted in several of those attempts, and that the purported supporters of the New Deal government, rigor and moralization, there was a time for them equally to consolidate power. The April 6 coup d'etat brought to Cameroonians a lot of pain, a lot of grief, to many that were thinking that the youngest president at the time, President Paul Biya, just took over 2 years, and that there was a need to permit him to work hard, and why not rebuild the nation. But like you said, 42 years after, are Cameroonians still thinking that the facts presented to them on the 6th of April 1984 are the same facts we are finding out today. We realize, and many researchers have equally said, that really there was nothing really in that light, and that it was schemed and planned to outstate or outclass the former CNU party supporters, and which we have seen in several instances today.
Now, Doctor, from your above response, do you mean you have the opinion that the plot or the coup was just staged with little or no substance?
Often than not, we think that after the coup d'etat, there is always maybe some acts from the government not to produce the same consequences of what might have led to the coup, that meaning that multipartism that was promised by the New Deal government was really multipartism in its character. But today we realize that the multipartism that was instituted by the New Deal today is just, when you look at it, we are still back in the olden days. That members of government that are against the ruling party are systematically being crushed and others still arrested, even when such opinions were given on a legal ground. Several oppositions to the ruling party today still linger the corridors of Kondengi, and many, even during the 2018 presidential elections, are still in prison. Where all these victims are the fallout of maintaining power. And we know very well that in dictatorial democracies, all are possible. I mean, comparing that like the system in North Korea, where even brothers and sisters have become caprices and victims of a tight dictatorial system, which Cameroonians are equally being submitted to today. I believe 42 years after, President Pobia has not presented anything new as against what we found in 1982. What has he done? Casting out all those who are against him and then maintaining and consolidating. You can imagine of recent, with the purported position and proposal of the Vice President of the Republic, with a constitutional amendment, it is still one aspect that it will only be in Cameroon that you have the Prime Minister and the Vice President appointed by the head of state. Is this not still substantiated and giving an idea that somebody had the intention of lasting as long as he could in power?
Already mentioning it somehow, Dr. Days back, the constitution, which is the law guiding the running of the state or the nation, was amended and the position of vice president has been included. Some Cameroonians consider that as a constitutional coup d'etat. Don't you think it coincides with this other plot which happened some 42 years ago?
Not coinciding. For those who are thinking, and I told people in 1972, there was one Tandem Muna was vice president. In 1984, the constitution was revised. Imagine the presidential decree, President Pobia bringing in the position of the prime minister, and Tandem Muna was signed in as the president of the National Assembly, and a few days after, Ayijo appointed President Pobia as his successor, which means somewhere there was a learning, there were lectures that were received by the present sitting president from the former regime, who equally think that in 1982, all was planned from France, and even what is happening now, the French are not left out. This is the system that has been. And to all those who think that it's not a coincidence, and I insist it's not a coincidence, it is a planned political agenda, and that agenda is in action. And this activity, which we are seeing in the few days to come, President Pobia is going to appoint a vice president. It is only, like I said, the lone system in the world where the vice president of the republic is appointed by the president of the republic with the intention that he gives him orders and can only do or delegate some functions to him, not constitutional delegation, but delegated powers from the president or the sitting president. We have not seen that. And again, I will tell you that it is a system that is planned to grip power, and that power should be concentrated in the hands of a single being, which means that the prime minister, which I call today the errand boy of the Cameroon government, and the vice president will just be messengers to the president without real activity or nothing to contribute. So many are asking, what will the vice president do or the prime minister do that even the secretary general of the presidency won't have done? But then the constitution is saying that the vice president shall be the head of the secretariat general of the presidency of the republic. What a fallacy. What confusion. How can a nation be confused to an extent of wasting resources and taxpayers' money in duplicating positions of the institutions of the state? These were the same reasons that were given in 1972 when they said that running two assemblies and running two governments on then Southern Cameroon and West Cameroon was going to be very expensive. What do we have today? We have 10 regional assemblies. We have 2 assemblies, the Senate and the National Assembly. Today we are going back to have the Prime Minister and the Vice President. My people are suffering, and that's where the Bible is clear that when the people suffer for knowledge, then the nation is doomed. I believe the nation Cameroon will not allow.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Akoshaw. We will be coming back to the position or the debate on the position of the Vice President of Cameroon in subsequent news editions. Thank you so much, sir, for your time, and hope to have you some other time. Viewers, that does it for this edition of the news. That was what we put together for you. Thank you so much for always being with us. Our programs continue today, Monday. Equinoxe will be yours in about 30 minutes or so with Sergeant Lang, and the news in the French language with Irish Ngolomala would be yours at 8 p.m. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now, and see you again tomorrow, same time, God willing.